Hi guys, I am thrilled to be bringing you Ed Bolian. Ed is the founder of VINwiki, which is a car history platform through which Ed has amassed a following of almost 2 million subscribers on YouTube. Ed has created a series of videos called Car Stories where car lovers are featured on the platform and share their experiences. And as a side quest, he has aided in the reduction and possibly identification of exotic car thefts. He was one of the presenters of Car Trek, which admittedly brought back nostalgic memories of the legendary Top Gear. But adding extra drama, I can say, considering the purposeful choice of the star cars. Ed was also the sales director for McLaren and Lamborghini at Motorcars, Georgia in Atlanta, US. And back in his college days, he kickstarted his very first company, Supercar Rentals Inc. Back in 2013, he broke the Cannonball Run challenge record with a time of 28 hours and 50 minutes. For those that don't know what the Cannonball Run challenge is, it's basically a street race from coast to coast in the US. That's from New York to LA. And Ed broke this with his colleagues with a Mercedes CL 55 AMG, as I said, in 28 hours and 50 minutes. The record doesn't stand as we talk, but it was an incredible experience, and you will see this in the interview as well. Now, what did we talk about in the actual interview? We talked about Ed's early days, how he created his very first business, how he sustained and then capitalized on it. We talked about his brand new acquisition, the Spiker C8 La Violette, which he acquired through Missy Elliott. We also talked about negotiation skills in exotic car sales, which young professionals should harness to have success in their field. We talked about the challenges of the Cannonball Run Challenge and how Ed and his team made sure to have an uneventful record run. Plus, we also talked about entrepreneurship advice the youth could adopt to realize their life ambitions. I can only summarize everything I've said into a single sentence. Ed is a genuine, blue-blooded car lover from whom all of us can be inspired. Now that's enough of me talking. Enjoy the rest of this clip.
Dead sexy Italian GT.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, you've had this so much this season.
Hello, Mr. Bolian. Hello.
How are you?
I am great. And what a background you have back there. I wasn't expecting that. Is that a C8?
It is, yep.
Oh my God. First of all, I have to say, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Beautiful. I have to say that I was not expecting an answer, first of all.
Oh.
So you being here, first of all, means a lot. I've been following you since 2017, a year after you launched your YouTube channel with and I didn't have the means nor a reason to approach you, but now I do, so here we are.
Fantastic.
So I'm very conscious of the 30 minutes I asked, so I don't want to waste any more of that time from you. So everyone knows you from your admittedly incredible stories through VINwiki, the Supercar Rentals, the company you owned, the salesman experience you have, which is vast, if I may add, the crazy salvage car attempted projects. One of it is the Bugatti that ran through the bay. That's another one. That's a very interesting one. And the Car Trek series with Freddie and Tyler. So admittedly, I wrote this in my questions as well, in my questions. It reminded me of the Top Gear, the good old Top Gear. It's not pure journalism, but it's three very good friends who love being around cars. It's very nostalgic. And please, if you can put another series out, don't stop doing it.
We're working on it. Yep.
And what I want to ask you though is I want to go back and to a point where I consider as a shift in your trajectory. So basically, when you launched the exotic car rentals, it was in 2006, if I'm not mistaken, back in your college days. How does a college student even does that to begin with?
When I look at my past in cars and in car business, I really point to an idea, and that is that most people over exaggerate the risks of whatever it is that they think they want to do, and that makes them not do it. And so as a young person, I figured, well, if you're ever going to go broke or bankrupt, everybody else is broke and bankrupt at this point. So why not just take out some gigantic loans and buy some exotic cars and try to rent them out? I mean, I loved the concept of the business, and I had seen it as successful in, some more primary markets, New York, Los Angeles, Miami, but in secondary cities like Atlanta, Georgia, that really wasn't a thing. And so I thought there was an opportunity there, but I didn't really know what it was going to look like. And so I figured, well, the best time to try is right now. And I was able to do it. Now, fortunately, at that time, the lending economy in America was much more lenient. And so you could get stated income loans as a 20-year-old for a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. And so it was it was the right time to start it, but it was also a few years later, the right time to get out.
Looking through all the logistics, I understand that you are a person with high risk tolerance. I mean, you were young to begin with, but you are that kind of person. And I want to ask you though, okay, starting something, let's say it could be simple, okay? How do you sustain it? Because you sold your inventory in 2010. How did you sustain your business up until that point?
One day at a time. We always have these pie in the sky projections about how successful a business concept can be and how responsive the customer base is going to be to the offering, but it never really works that way. And you always have to find the right path to grind through whatever the entrepreneurial journey is going to be. And so it's not necessarily going to be as you planned it when you hopefully wrote a very comprehensive business plan. It's always going to pivot. It's always going to change. It's always going to evolve. And for me, it was really focusing on the idea of ownership replacement as a marketing strategy, rather than simply relying on, tourism or anything like that. I wanted people to rent the cars as their own in order to avoid the depreciation, the expenses, and everything else that goes with traditional ownership. And those customers were a lot more reliable. So a lot of times the discoveries that you have along your journey as an entrepreneur totally change how your business functions, but in general, they make it a lot healthier.
Mm-hmm. Were you looking at that from the beginning, like to create a space where you don't need to compete with other exotic car rental companies, but do something unique, let's say?
A lot of the things that I have done have primarily hinged upon the fact that I'm not really competing with anyone. If you look at the exotic car rental company in 2006, or a crowdsourced vehicle history reporting platform in 2016, or setting the Cannonball record in 2013, at each of those moments, there really wasn't anybody else trying to do those things because the goals were either too stupid or too audacious to be that interesting. And so I like finding spaces like that where either I'm not bidding against somebody on a car that is so bad or in such a strange circumstances, or I'm not competing with somebody as a business person because nobody else is okay with the risk profile that it involves.
Mm-hmm. And what I want to add is that through my interviews, I understood that sales is not just a skill, as I wrote in my questions, exclusive to only seasoned professionals. It's something that everybody should have. Sales is basically what you negotiate. This is what you're going to get. Through your years of being an exotic car salesman, what would you say is the most important realization you made about human psychology when trying to rent a car to an individual or sell a car? What do these people want at the end of the day?
Well, when you're on the buying side of a negotiation, the gut instinct is to minimize commitment. You want to float some ideas out there, or a casual offer, or maybe I would do this, or if I can overcome this said objection, then I'm going to be ready to proceed. When in reality, commitment at any level is the most powerful element of a negotiation. And when I'm trying to buy a car, I don't care how low the offer is. I am 100% committed. I will close right now if you'll accept my deal. And everybody else wants PPIs. Everybody else wants to really think about it, sleep on it, all these things. I don't care. I've made a decision based on what I know about the situation, about the car, and I'm going to do what I said I would do. And I'm always competing against people who will probably do what they said they might want to do and have all these conditions on their offers. And so no matter what you're negotiating, never be afraid to be strongly committed to what you assume is probably an insulting offer, because the commitment makes it not insulting.
So it basically boils down, I can see you're viewing this from a business point of view. I mean, it doesn't have to work like that, because cars, as I've seen at least, you can correct me on this, people invest in them emotionally, especially exotic cars. So how does that dynamic work of, okay, I want to be invested in this car, but I shouldn't, I have to stick to my guns and not overspend. How does that work?
Well, it always works after you've had one at least big win, right? So as soon as you make a lot of money on a car, everything else feels a whole lot safer. And so, it just helps to be as knowledgeable as you possibly can be. And I think that my resume of car ownership demonstrates that about as well as anybody. I buy Murciélagos because I love them. I buy other interesting cars that I know about. But the more you know about whatever it is that you're targeting, inevitably, the more successful that you're going to be. And there's a lot of areas where most consumers are so unknowledgeable about whatever it is that they're targeting that you're really not competing against anybody else who's trying very hard. And that was certainly the case when I was out buying manual transmission Murciélagos before everybody else was, because literally nobody cared about these cars. They were neglected. The same for the Spiker behind me. These cars, when they are totally misunderstood and totally undervalued, again, that's exactly the time where you can learn. It's rare. It meets all the criteria you'd ever want. And it's a special car to own and drive. And that's when you make a good deal.
I mean, absolutely. I remember when Jeremy Clarkson reviewed one of the Spikers, nobody was interested in them. Just a car, a shell from an airplane company with an Audi engine. And now the Violet you got is like, what, $500,000, if I'm not mistaken?
Probably, give or take.
And it will become a $1 million car, I'm sure. So you mentioned Cannonball before, and that's another big one. So you set the record in 2013. It has been broken ever since, but that doesn't matter. Okay, it's still a huge feat. So an outsider can say, okay, you drive from New York to LA as fast as you can, you put some extra cells, maybe a radar in your car. What's so difficult about it? So tell me, what was so difficult about it?
It really isn't that difficult. It's just daunting. And I think that a lot of things that we see as these ultra interesting or ultra high hurdles of things that we want to use either to define ourselves or to test ourselves or whatever the case may be, they seem crazy, they seem impossible, and they are if you face them in their entirety. But like you said, for Cannonball, it's about finding the right car and preparing it the right way and choosing the right day to go and minimizing the risks of failure and managing all the things that go into it. And each of those in and of themselves is a relatively simple problem. The problem is facing them all at once. And so anytime you have a difficult task, as long as you can break it down into those little bites that you can more easily digest, it gets a whole lot easier to be successful. And so that's really what I tried to do. And I loved it because, in my opinion, it was the perfect way for me to express the way that I love the automobile. Because when we all say we love cars, that means a very different thing to everyone. But for me, it was the combination of picking the right car, finding the right trip, preparing in the right way, and achieving the right outcome that could be recognized in the right way so that people could hopefully validate who I wanted to be as it surrounded the automotive hobby. And so I was very, very pleased to have found the right goal more than I was to have achieved that goal. Because I think that's where a lot of people say, all right, well, if I love cars, I need to go buy a GT3 RS because that's like the ultimate car guy car. Or because I want to drive on the track, I have to go to the Nürburgring and I'll love that. And you might, those are all wonderful goals, but there's also so many things out there that you can do in the automotive world to express how much you care about the hobby or about the cars or about the people that love the cars. And I'm very, very fortunate at a very young age to find the right goal. And so whenever I talk to people, I always tell them, like, spend a lot more time thinking about what it is that you actually want than learning about what everybody in the space wants.
That's a very important realization, especially for young people. And I have one more question. Why the Mercedes then? Why did you choose the Mercedes to do
So we
that?
used a 2004 Mercedes CL55 AMG, and it was just the perfect car to gobble up road miles in comfort. It was very, very fast. It was honestly the fastest car that I could really afford to own and drive in that way. I did have a Lamborghini that I had bought with no money down, but it was certainly not the right car to go out and drive like that or that long. And so this was the right car at the time. It had 100 more horsepower than Alex Roy's BMW M5, which was the record that we were trying to beat. And it had been the right amount of time, for technology to change, for the situations to improve, and for our understanding of the problem to have developed enough. And so the CL, makes great power. It is very comfortable. It does everything you need it to do. And yeah, it was cheap on Craigslist.
Which is the most important thing when you don't have money and you're
That's right.
a young guy trying to achieve a dream. Absolutely. Now I will come to today and I will be oddly specific. And it has to do with the second hero behind you, basically, the C8, the La Violette. Can you tell me why? Oh my God. It's so beautiful. I can't stress it enough. I just love learning about cars as you. It's like, it's incredible. So what I want to ask is why? Why did you go to Spiker? You're always on the look for the bigger, better, or I would say the most important car for you. What's next? Why Spiker? Why that?
When you think about the criteria of a car that you love, there's a lot of things we love. We love cars that are pretty. We love cars that sound really good. We love cars that are rare. We love cars that are fast. We love cars that have a lot of different, accolades or superlatives that you might attach to them. But if I boil it down to one word, it's just special. Like, we do so many drives in our life, whether it's to the grocery store or across the country, and those drives are entirely different in a Honda or a Toyota or a Mercedes than they are in a Lamborghini or a Ferrari or a Spiker. And so as I think about cars that I really want to own, obviously they're all very fast. They're all very beautiful. They're all very cool. They're all pretty rare. But I want a car that I can take on a very mundane drive and it will make it extraordinary. And that is what a special car does. And I have never been in a car that makes a drive more special than the Spiker. I love other cars more for what they are as automobiles, but in terms of the way that you interact with this car, the significance of what it is with respect to the automotive market, both then and now, and just how much presence the car has anywhere you take it, to me, it's a perfect recipe. And again, rare cars weren't rare when they were new, just nobody bought them. And so when you were selling this car in 2009 for the same price as that 430 Scuderia, that car was much faster, much more advanced, much more desirable, and an entirely different ownership proposition. And so I love the fact that now there's only 260 of these cars in the whole wide world. And when it's the only one in my state, it's the only one at any show I ever take it to. It's certainly the only one on the road. I've never passed another Spiker. And I just think it has every element that a car needs to ultimately appreciate. You've got center lock wheels before that was really a thing. Clamshell design, louvered fenders, a functional roof scoop, vertically opening doors, an exposed gear linkage, floor hinged pedals, inboard pushrod suspension, a great Audi V8 that's quite serviceable, just a lot of really, really special stuff. And, people call it a cheap man's Pagani, and I'm very, very happy with that moniker. I enjoy driving it a whole lot more than I like driving at least Wyras. Zonda's quite a thing, but yeah, so to me, it's just perfect.
This is exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, okay, maybe it's a channel, a pathway to a Wira, the gear linkage. I don't think, I wouldn't even dare to compare them, not because the Pagani is better than the Spiker or vice versa, but it boils down to what you love. Okay, you take this car, you buy this car because you love the sensation of it and making a mundane drive exciting. Okay, who can say anything about that? I think you're able to encapsulate what the meaning of being a car guy means. If you know what I mean. A lot of people, they're very biased. They see a car like, hey, whatever. I don't think you do that. I don't think you do that. It means a lot to the car community.
It's so natural to want to chase the latest, greatest, newest, biggest, baddest, whatever thing.
Yeah.
And That's not wrong. There's plenty of people that have a garage with a GT2 RS and an Aventador SVJ and, you know, a 488 or a Pista or whatever. And that's a wonderful lineup of cars. They've got the best cars that each of these manufacturers have been able to produce, but that doesn't mean they're actually the best cars to own or drive. And I love, honestly, finding something that's almost that diamond in the rough that people don't quite get yet. And because then hopefully you look like you know what you're doing and you look like you did it on purpose. In most cases, I'm just buying those because they're old enough to stop depreciating and I can't afford to own something new that's going to lose a bunch of its value. But it's nice when they also happen to go up in value and hopefully reflect a little bit more about who you are as a car guy.
Mm-hmm. And at the moment you have pristine cars. Maybe not all of them, but they are pristine. Let's talk about cars who are not pristine, because you've developed an interest in those as well. So Freddie took the P1. That's a question I didn't put in, by the way. Freddie took the P1. He's working on this very hard. You at some point wanted to buy the said Bugatti I mentioned in the beginning. Tell me, first of all, the challenges of being able to salvage this car and why, because I think it's something that's beyond views.
It is, yes. The idea of taking a car that's had a really, really bad day and turning it back into something functional is interesting in two ways, right? One, hopefully it allows you to afford a car that you otherwise could not, which the only Bugattis I can afford are the ones that have been totaled. And so that means that anyone that has been totaled becomes quite interesting to me. The same for Freddie with the P1. But there's also the aspect of the journey back, right? And the attachment that you form with the car as you bring it back to life, back to functionality, and back into something that somebody could love and hopefully eventually sell and maybe even make some money on. But at the end of the day, it's about an entry point and then the journey to the destination. You know, for me, like, I could not afford one of 16 perfect condition manual LP640 Roadsters, but it's honestly my favorite car all around. And I was able to afford the worst one in the world. And that still works for me. Like, I don't have any less enjoyment out of the car because it's been spray painted and has aftermarket cheap body panels and has been neglected and poorly treated and damaged and fixed, kind of. And, you know, all those things actually just give me greater license to go out and use and drive and enjoy a car. And so if it were perfect, I would be a little bit more hesitant to drive it. Now, I'm warming up to driving better cars because I've accidentally owned a few really nice ones, the one behind me included. I bought it from Missy Elliott. She had no idea why it didn't run. She had no idea when it had last been started, and she just wanted it gone. And so I got a really good deal on a car that happened to be very nice. I did not pay nice car money for it. And the same thing for some of the Ferraris and things like that I've just kind of stumbled into based on the trades to get there. But yeah, it's there's nothing wrong with having nice cars, but sometimes it's a whole lot more fun to have terrible ones.
Mm-hmm. And what I could also add is giving advice towards your journey. I mean, you're doing this right now to me, but not everyone can have access to you. So to make it more personal, let's say that you were talking about goals and life advice and financial success and freedom to one of your kids, to your son, let's say. What would you say to them in 2023? A lot of people are after this, okay? They're after the image, the nice cars. That's that image. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that simple, though, to get there.
Well, it's not as simple as all these Instagram gurus try to make it seem.
Yeah.
No, it's not that easy to go out there. Yes, keep great credit and, you know, save a good down payment, buy cars that don't depreciate, do all the things that are entirely logical about how to own the cars that you dream about. But, you know, when you think about wealth, there was something that I learned at the dealership, because obviously I'm selling cars to very, very wealthy people. I was the sales director at Lamborghini Atlanta. We were also McLaren, Aston Martin, Lotus, Spiker, technically.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I learned was, you know, people chase these numbers, these totally arbitrary savings numbers, investment numbers, net worth numbers, and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if you Google Ed Bolian, the first recommended phrase is Ed Bolian's net worth. And
yes.
There's wildly inaccurate estimates out there, accurate in the not as nice as it actually is estimated range. I'm not nearly as rich as the internet thinks I might be, but I do have good credit. And what I like is, rather than focusing on any of that, focus on how much money you cannot care about. So I've met people that were worth $1 billion that if they were overcharged by $10 for a part, they would freak out, or $100. And this person's time is not worth being upset about that amount of money. But for whatever reason, they cannot let anything like that go. And it helped me to formulate the honest life goal of just not caring about more money rather than caring about how much money I have. Because the most liberating thing in the world isn't to have $100 million. It's to not care about $10,000. Because imagine living in a world where nothing under $10,000 of consequence was allowed to make you mad or make you even think. That would be the most blissful existence in the whole wide world. And I have simply lived my life every year trying to think about what is that number and trying to get it up. And the higher it gets, the happier I seem to be.
I have to admit, okay, I've done around 140 interviews. I've never heard this advice before. That's what they say. You talk to a new person, they have something new to offer to you. It's very difficult. Have you forced yourself to that mindset, or did it happen like naturally through your experience as a salesman?
It happens very naturally when you see really rich people getting upset about very inconsequential amount of money, even for you, right? Like, if a waiter messing up your order makes you mad and you're worth that kind of money, like, stop thinking that way, change. And so to me, it was very natural in seeing the alternative mindset. And so, I don't know, and it doesn't take that long of thinking about, oh man, I want to be worth $100 million, to realize, what on earth am I going to do with $100 million? And, you see people who have money, and they're really not happier. The problems that you have as you get more money, the problems in raising your children right when you have more money, just get harder. Nothing gets easier. After you have stable shelter and food and clothing and transportation, like, it all gets more complex from there. Mm-hmm. And so the simpler your life is, the simpler your goals are, the simpler your relationships are, generally the happier you seem to be.
And another question that I have that comes out of this. So you have vast experience with exotic cars. You've done car trek. Have you ever thought of being a car journalist, let's say, for brand new cars or interesting concepts or big colossal companies, let's say Ferrari, for instance? Have you ever thought of this?
Being a car journalist was really the first goal. If you'd asked me when I was in high school what I wanted to do for a living, it would either be the Crocodile Hunter or Jeremy Clarkson, right? The chance to really go out there and review the newest, coolest, whatever stuff. But as you really look into the reality of that career, you spend an awful lot of time reviewing compact hatchbacks rather than driving Ferraris and Lamborghinis and things like that. And so I realized that I was going to be very poorly compensated, overworked, and spend most of the time driving the cars that I'd rather not, or wouldn't get that much enjoyment out of. It's always fun to experience something new. And doing what I had this mental image of was going to be a very, very small percentage at the time. And even when you look at, the heyday of Top Gear, I mean, they were only shooting 30 or 40 days a year. And so it's a very, very different lifestyle than you think. Today, I get to play with whatever cars I want to. I don't get about, I know I'm not going to press junkets and driving the new Aston Martin DB12, but I can drive that car later when it becomes depreciated to the point that I might be able to afford it and can make a reasonable decision about it. And it'll still drive the same way, just with a few more creaks and rattles and miles. And, maybe the dash is peeling, but I'll still have the exact same amount of fun, maybe even more. And so, it's great to see what the world of automotive journalism does, because it inspires young people like young me to distill and refine what they love about cars. Because I remember watching the 0 to 60 times and the lightning laps and the Nürburgring times and all the things that everybody was doing to evaluate cars in the early 2000s, and thinking, like, I'm really just curious about which car I could go to grandma's house in Florida the fastest. Like, what car could you drive on a road 500 or 1,000 miles and get there the quickest and feel the best when you were done and hopefully avoid any bad outcomes? And so in that moment of thought, eventually a few steps later leads to Cannonball. And so I'm very happy that there were people out there investing in educating young people about cars. Because if it weren't for that, then I never would have fallen in love with them, because certainly back then there was not the social media world of people trying to show you how cool they're like, here in my garage with all my fun stuff.
And I believe that's a complete answer. Gives a very good perspective of
George, I'm losing you
yeah?
just a little bit.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Your audio's back.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, great. So what I said is that that's a complete answer. It gives a young person the perspective, like the full perspective of what it takes to be a real car guy. And that could be an episode in Car Trek as well. So like take a car, see who is the happiest when you reach destination. So why not?
Well, and that's a very, very important thing to understand, is that the happiness that you'll experience with a car has very little to do with the car and very much on how you use it. And, so if you are going out to all these car trek journeys are usually in really terrible cars. Driving a TVR 1,000 miles is a miserable experience. It is glorious and it is satisfying, and every drop of sweat and misery is worth it. But it isn't what they advertise the cars to do, right? It doesn't make for a brochure, but it makes for an incredible memory. And so, our car story today is about driving cars to the coastal areas of Alaska to shoot them off a cliff for the 4th of July. And these are the worst cars that they thought they could actually make it to the finish line in. But the experience that they had was so significant, so fun, and so profound that it wouldn't have been the same in a dependable car. And really engrossing in local culture by making it somewhere in a terrible car is much more a car guy experience than getting the latest, greatest, newest, biggest, baddest, coolest thing and driving it somewhere fun.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that experience. Oh, I'm looking so forward to that experience. So, Mr. Bolian, what can I say? Keep inspiring people. It really means a lot that you're so approachable. And I'm looking forward to what you're going to bring to us, because I'm sure you're not done. 100% you're not done.
No, we're having a whole lot of fun. So it's always trying to do the next thing. And I tried to buy a car in a Japanese arcade auction a couple nights ago, and I won the auction, but they're not comfortable with the bid yet. So we'll see. But that'd be quite a project. So
I'm dying to know. I'm dying to know
always,
what it is. I'm dying literally.
Thank
you so much. It means a lot.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Like this, man, I'll tell you, for this to be where I'm at right now, in God's beautiful country, running alongside a river between these spectacular rock formations in this car, it's amazing. I don't know what I did right to be able to do this, but man, I hope